In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, me and Richard Stayman, we're going to share our thoughts on some early impressions. There were quite a few games last night, which was Wednesday night, where there's some NBA prospects that made their season debuts. We're going to share our thoughts on Dylan Harper, Ryan Kalkbrenner's incredibly dominant performance, and plus the NBA prospects on Arkansas's roster. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, and my co-host for today is Mr. Mavs Draft, aka Richard Stayman, who now lives in the DC area. And before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by none other than FanDuel, which means you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And then I wanted to talk to you about the Locked On newsletter. Your favorite team has a newsletter, or your favorite podcast from Locked On has a newsletter. It is a one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage, and it is delivered right to your inbox. So sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On, fill in the blank, whatever your favorite team is, newsletter. And also, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because we are coming at you with NBA draft-related content or NBA rookies content 5 days per week at the minimum. All right, let's get started. College basketball is back. And before we talk about the prospects on the rundown, what are you most looking forward to seeing from this college basketball season?
Man, it's just honestly, after last season, it's nice to right out of the gate have some excitement. And it's really just that unpredictability. Who's going to be like a Bub Carrington this year? Nobody really had Bub Carrington on their preseason boards, maybe one or two people. And they were trying to shout it from the rooftops, but everybody tries to shout somebody from the rooftops, but who actually sticks from that? That's what I'm looking forward to. And also just seeing how a lot of these guys live up to the hype. And so far, I don't think there's anybody who's raised any red flags of at least like the consensus around top 15 picks.
I mean, depending on who you talk to, Leaf and James will tell you VJ Edgecombe. I mean, his game was not
sure. But that was a
great
bad
start.
game. That was a bad game for everyone.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, I don't want to overreact off of one game, but I would say like out of all the guys that are projected high in that range, his was the one that was the most alarming. But he also played the best competition. He didn't play like a really small below mid-major school, so that's why I don't want to necessarily overreact about his performance. But he struggled. But he had one amazing highlight play that would probably be one of the best plays that we'll see all season from a prospect. All right, let's start off with Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper played against Wagner. Unfortunately, we didn't get any Ace Bailey, but Harper had 20 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, was 9 of 14 from the floor. What were your overall thoughts on his performance?
Everything was smooth. Like it looked like, granted, this is Wagner, not kind of like you hinted at. This is not the same competition like Gonzaga that VJ Edgecombe played, but he looked really, really impressive. Everything looked exactly like I remember it being from when he was in high school, when he was playing EYBL, all of it. The way he just moves through traffic to so easily get to his spots, like double teams in the middle of his drives didn't faze him. When he had to split defenders while he's driving towards the basket, doesn't bother him. They were all bigger than him too. And then on defense, I thought he was really impressive, just disrupting so much, being really smart, chasing guys around screens, making plays happen. Fantastic debut.
I didn't think it was fantastic. You know why? Well, one, because
I was shocked.
I felt like it was uneven. Like I watched the game. He made 7 of his 8 shots in the paint, which was good. 8 of the points came in transition. He was 1 of 6 from the foul line. And he made 2 of 7 jump shots, and he had more turnovers than assists. Now, again, it's early. It's just a little nitpicking here. That's why I couldn't give him the fantastic grade. but I thought that he looked, like the player that everyone is excited about for the most part. Very poised and patient, plays at his own speed. You can't really speed him up. Just seems to know what he's doing, if that makes sense. It's just an advanced feel. One of my concerns coming into the season that I wanted to see out of him was I thought he was more of a shot maker than a shooter. So I wanted to see how well he shoots. I feel like he kind of has like a flat, low release that if he doesn't get great separation, could make the shots a little bit more contested than you would like. And so that's one of the things that I'm just really going to be monitoring and paying attention from him this season is how well the jump shot falls. And then his athleticism to me is still weird. Like there are times where it doesn't look like he can blow by guys. He uses more craft and strength. And then there are times where it doesn't look like he's an above the rim finisher. And then he'll have like a dunk where you're like, okay, he is somewhat bouncy. What are your thoughts on like his overall like athleticism?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say almost everything you said just now captured like what I thought in high school. And I think that's probably why, like, I had such low expectations for his jumper, just to go back on that real fast, that it doesn't bother me. And I agree about the low release and everything. Like, I think that's a process, but with the athleticism, it was always had to be, he would win either through power or finesse, like physically bullying guys to get past them, not necessarily be like, whoop, I'm gone, and blow by guys to the first step. I do think he does have a surprising amount of athleticism, like in an open floor. Just in a half court, it's a little bit tougher. And he's going to have to rely on his great paint touch more than he should, given his role that is projected in the NBA.
Yeah, I feel like he's fast in the open floor, but he's not quick.
Yeah.
Like if you give him a runway, then he can make plays above the rim. But then he had a dunk where he went baseline, where I wouldn't say like he had a great runway, but his athleticism to me is tricky. Like I said, there's sometimes it doesn't look like he can beat guys off the dribble. And I've actually seen like guys be able to like cut him off, but he's so good at when you cut him off. He has counters, he has strength, and then he definitely knows how to create space. But what I want to watch from him is how well does he create space if he's being defended by like a long rangy defender, and is his flat shot going to be altered if he's got like an Ace Bailey, like his teammate?
I saw them face each other last year, and it was a little bit like the shot was noticeably even worse. Like I remember it. I saw it happen in person. Ace was guarding him and he couldn't get his shot off.
And I want to say there were some similarities to that in the Hoop Summit. I could be wrong. When AJ DeBansta was guarding him, I felt like he wasn't able to get as many clean looks as he's able to get if the person doesn't have like great size and length. So that's just something that I'm just, maybe nitpicking here, but I'm not necessarily just looking for flaws to like, push him down, but it is one of the concerns that I had in my notes. All right. When we return, we have to talk about Ryan Kalkbrenner. And I know you want to hear about the freshmen. You want to hear about the guys that are really exciting, not necessarily the players that seem like they've been in college basketball forever. But what Ryan Kalkbrenner did last night was one of the most amazing. I don't know why I say amazing. One of the most amazing and efficient performances I've seen. We'll talk about Kalkbrenner's performance when we return. But first, let's talk about our new sponsor, which is Skims. Now, I had no idea that Skims made underwear for men until recently. I want to say recently, I guess dating back to the NCAA tournament where they had a range of some of the top prospects modeling Skims for their March Madness rollout. But what I'm hearing is that Skims is now making underwear. So I had to do a little research and did a little Googling. And what I ended up finding out is that there are a lot of men who really like Skims underwear. So here is a review from a customer. He says, "This may be TMI, but I'm a briefs guy through and through. But finding the perfect yet classic brief can be quite a challenge. Luckily for me, Skims came through with their cotton brief It's everything you love about the classic fit and feel of a cotton brief, but it has maxed out comfort and breathability. For all my brief guys out there, trust me, you can't beat this one. So that is an example of a Skims customer who is really a big fan of Skims. So you can shop for Skims for men at skims.com. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop menu that follows. And if you are looking for the perfect holiday gifts, not just for you, but for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, and it is also available at skims.com. All right, second segment. We have to touch on Ryan Kalkbrenner. Before we get into his ridiculous performance last night, do you see him as a draftable player? I know because of the way he played yesterday, you're starting to see people say, oh, I've had him in my top 20, whatever. And I've seen him being compared to Brook Lopez. But what are your thoughts about Ryan Kalkbrenner overall? Hold on. If you're not watching on YouTube, you saw Richard make a face as soon as I said Brook Lopez.
No, I just don't see Brook Lopez. But I think I will always give a benefit of the doubt to analytics. And I know analytics favor him pretty well, at least from last year. So I think there's definitely a place for him in the NBA. I have a few things. One, I want to see the shot actually be reliable, have repeatable mechanics, because last night, I mean, his shot, he starts straight and then it goes all the way to the side and then he releases, kind of trying to get back straight. So he's got to iron that out. He went 2 of 2 from 3 last night and has good touch on his shot overall. I just don't think it's consistent mechanics. That's going to be the biggest thing, because if he can become a stretch big that can beat you inside out, that's great, because I just don't know how assertive and powerful he is and how much of a bully he can be, because he has to just kind of be like mean. I don't know if he has a mean streak, and I want to see that. Last night was a great example of him going, hey, you can't stop me. I'm just going to keep doing what I do. And I love that, but I would still want to see him just push guys out of the way, get to his spots, like obviously not physically push, but like, get them to be just at a major disadvantage at his favorite spots and win there. Because he's going to have to win more than just at the post and getting these post-ups in the NBA. As we see it, unless you are like, there are very few players who get a ton of post-ups drawn for him. You got to win in other ways. So I want to see him be more creative and be meaner in being creative in the NBA.
Yeah, that's valid. But last night, he put up a mean stat line, 49 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists. To me, I can't figure out which is the most impressive stat line, the 49 points or making 20 of 22 shots.
It's that one. It's the efficiency. 90%.
Yeah, like when you go to like ESPN and you pull up like his profile page, it's like 49, 11, 2, 90.9. Never seen that before. And he's a guy that doesn't miss. Like last year, he shot 64% from the floor, which is incredible. But that was down 5 points from the year before, where he shot 69%. And I want to say, I think we talked about it a couple of years ago. Was it like the Maui Invitation or something like that, where he might have made like 18 shots in a row? I think they lost to Arkansas and the Anthony Black team. I know there was like an incredible stretch 2 years ago.
There was somebody who did it. It had to be him then.
Yeah, where he made, it was like stretching over like 2 games where he made like 18 or 19 consecutive.
Yes. Yeah, it was Kalk.
Like, just give me a breakdown of what you saw out of that performance.
Yeah, I mean, dominant in the post. He won every single angle. He was starting at different spots. It was just taking what the defense gave him and killing it. And it wasn't just him being bigger than everyone else. It kind of just goes back to what I said. Like, he was very aggressive in getting to his spots and taking advantage of it. And I think that stuff matters. Like, if you are, it's not just him being bigger than everybody, considering the players who have done what he did, that like 49 point mark, just starting there, 49-50, obviously very close, but it draws up the same results. Just about nobody at his height has ever dropped this many points, if I'm not mistaken. I saw a stat like that, I'm paraphrasing it, but to get 49 points on very high efficiency isn't just him being big. He knew what he was doing. He was smart. He was aggressive. Now, the next game, he's going to have to fill extremely large shoes, but I am interested to see how teams counter if they start doubling him a little bit more, what he does out of those double teams, things like that.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. Is Creighton going to have to rely on him heavily to
Yes.
have, I mean, not 49 points, but are they going to have to heavily rely on him?
Yes.
Was he scoring that much because they don't have any other options? And of course, if a guy is hot like that, you want to feed him every time. But when I looked at their roster, I'm like, they don't have Trey Alexander and Baylor Shireman this year.
Yeah. And it's noticeable. Like they have some talent. Don't get me wrong. Like I think they have good players. I think he's on a tier of his own on that team.
So let's talk about his defense. I know that there are some concerns about his defense, even though is he like 2-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah.
But I've heard people say, and I've heard different scouts talk about, can he defend in space? What are your thoughts about him as a NBA defender?
Yeah, that's where my issue comes in, because he's great in the drop cover, like in pure drop coverage. If you watch even the game, I think it was Akron. Is that who they played in the first round last year of the tournament? I think that's who it was. I'm 90% sure of that. When they played them, every single pick and roll deep under, like deeply under the screen, and he would just drop into the paint. And that kind of stuff, that's why he won Defensive Player of the Year, because if they did a pick and roll and they actually went with the roll, you just met him at the rim. It was an easy win. You can't do that in the NBA. You can't really just camp the paint as easily. You do have to take those switches, and you're not going to give an NBA player an open three. I think from there, he's very easily movable off of his base. He can be shaken off his spot, and that's what worries me. I think his defensive impact goes down significantly in NBA context. So I'm not huge on his defense, and that's where I draw my line of like, he's great on the offensive end. He's going to be very efficient, but how does he counter it on the defensive end? He's going to need a great system around him, because that's what he has now. The system is designed offensively for him and also to hide him on defense. Will that be sustainable? And this year's a great test of that too.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I guess, dilemma in a sense, to where when you explain to someone that defense might be the issue, but then they say, well, he's won Defensive Player of the Year multiple times in the conference. So I can't think of another time, at least on the defensive end, where a guy wins the Defensive Player of the Year in a major conference, but yet the biggest red flag on him as an NBA prospect is his defense. We've seen it on offense because we've seen guys that can score, but their game may not be translatable to the NBA on the offensive end, despite winning Player of the Year or being All-American. But can you think of a guy that was like a dominant college defender, but the concern about him is his defense in the NBA?
I'm trying to think. I
don't think there is one. That's how unique it is.
I mean, Zach Edey was a 2-time Big Ten all defense guy, and people worried about him on defense. But even then, I don't think that was actually founded in too much rationale in a lot of way. I think it's the reason why my hypothesis is pretty much like it's the block shots. That's why he won Defensive Player of the Year, and he was very good at the rim. It wasn't just that, but the block shots speak volumes for Defensive Player of the Year in college basketball across most conferences. It's not, Bam Adebayo is a much different defender than somebody who sits at the rim. I'm just drawing a blank right now. Than someone like Zubac, right? And they may get similar blocks per games at times. Like there may be stretches where they have the same amount of blocks, but they're wholly different defenders in what they do.
Yep. Do you think Kalkbrenner is a top 60 player considering his age in a sense? Like he's not old, but for college basketball he is. And he was on the U19 team a few years ago that had like Jaden Ivey, Peyton Watson, Chet Holmgren. It's almost like him, and I want to say maybe there's a guy from Purdue that is still in college basketball from that team. But if you just look at
Miles Colvin, I think.
Who?
I think it's Miles Colvin, right?
No, because I think he's only a sophomore. It's I can't think of the guy's name, but it just seems like that was so long ago from the Chet Holmgren and Wembanyama matchup, and those guys are in there. Well, Chet's in his third season, only second season playing, but Kalkbrenner is still playing college basketball.
Yeah, it might have been Caleb First. I think that's who it was.
Caleb First. I think that is one. All right, when we return, let's wrap up this episode with the prospects on Arkansas. It's a debate over who is Arkansas's best NBA prospects. I'm going to ask Richard who he believes is their best prospect. And I have an interesting stat from Boogie Fland that I want to hear. I want to hear Richard's thoughts on. But before we wrap up this episode, let's talk about FanDuel, because with FanDuel, you can get ready to take on the NFL action with FanDuel, which happens to be America's #1 sports book. Because right now, if you are a new customer, you bet $5, you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, and you want to check out the latest stats or view live play-by-play, you can do it right in the app on the same page where you place your bets. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, let's get right to it. In your opinion, who is Arkansas's best NBA prospect?
I'm going to go Boogie Fland. I've had him number 6 on my board. I had him number 6 on my preseason board. I have moved him down to number 7 just because of size. I think it's really hard to have someone at his size that high in this class, but I still think he's the best prospect. Like what he did, what I've seen for the last year in high school, and then how he's looked in the preseason games and in this first game, I was just very impressed. I love his scoring profile, and he fits that mold of, yeah, he's a little undersized, but he can be a dynamic scoring guard because there are a good amount of those in the NBA.
Who's your NBA comparison?
I mean, I don't like this. I mean, I see a lot of Donovan Mitchell in his game and of the play style. I know it's not in a lot of what he does in the half court, getting off the dribble, getting to the rim, using the speed, turning defense into offense, going quick in transition. It's not a one-to-one, but I think there is a lot of shades of how he is as a scorer at the least.
You know who mine is? Mo Williams.
Oh, man. A retro.
Mo Williams. Me and James talked about it. I think that he's capable of being your lead ball handler, but I think that his game is suited to where if you play him next to a Luka Doncic or a LeBron or a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a high usage, bigger guard that he can play next to them and complement them. So I did some numbers. Mo averaged like 13 and 5 points a game for his career. He was an all-star. He was the primary ball handler in Milwaukee, but he fit next to LeBron in those early Cleveland teams playing off the ball. And so I think one of the similarities is they're both small. They're not considered like high-level athletes. It may be because I watched Mo in high school, and I watched him a lot when he was in high school. And Mo pretty much had a 13-year NBA career based off of him being a somewhat combo guard that did all of his work on jump shots. And I talked to Mo, and he told me that he had one dunk in his whole NBA career. And so that's how I see for Boogie. That's just my personal opinion. But here's an interesting stat about last night. And tell me if this concerns you. So he got up some shots last night. He got up quite a few shots. He shot 15 pull-up jumpers. I can't recall the time I've seen a guy other than maybe like Steph Curry shoot 15 pull-up jumpers off the dribble in one game. He was 4 for 15 on pull-up jumpers.
Yeah, that was the one thing for me, like efficiency-wise, I thought that could have been a lot better. I think there's also some mechanical stuff, like his base comes and goes. He leaves the ball pretty far out. Like, I don't know, some of that stuff may play into it, and I think a lot of that is fixable, though, because beyond the shot going in or out, he actually created a ton of space on those, and it was always a good shot, I felt. Like, the process was good. The results were really bad, but I liked what he was going for.
Any concerns about that shot profile? Now, I don't think he's going to shoot that many. But then again,
it's tough. I mean, even in high school, he was bad at the rim. So that is my worry, is consistently throughout EYBL, he was 55% at the rim. At Archbishop, I forget which one it is, he was 55% of the rim. It was smaller sample size. Not all his games were tracked, but so he's probably going to be around 55% of the rim. There are still good players who have made it work being 55% at the rim. I mean, also that number isn't a tell-all. Brandon Miller shot like 39% at the rim 2 years ago in college. So like it doesn't mean everything, but for a smaller guard, it means a lot more.
Do you think that? Well, actually, let me ask you this: were you surprised that he started?
A little bit. I can't remember who the entire starting lineup was. I want to say Wagner came off the bench
No,
and
Wagner
Johnell.
started. They
Okay,
started
Johnell came off the
Wagner,
bench.
Davis, Boogie, Ivisic.
It was the 3 guard. That's right.
Yep. And then how do you pronounce his last name? Thiero?
Thiero, yeah.
I felt like they said something different on the game. I always thought it was Thiero. So yeah,
I
I was
heard
actually
something wholly different too from what I remember hearing at Kentucky, for whatever it's worth.
yeah, okay. I'll make sure that I wasn't losing my mind here. But no, I was surprised. I predicted all preseason he was going to have a Rob Dillingham type role coming off the bench, play a lot of minutes, and he played 36 minutes last night, but I was shocked that he started.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it now, the shock for me was Brazil, having been like the lone player to stay there. Obviously, a whole different coaching staff. That was the shock. Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and some more coming back to me.
The whole situation at Arkansas is just weird to me. Like, with their 3 bigs, with 2 of them being transfers, I don't understand why 2 guys would transfer. Somebody's going to be the odd man out. And then I didn't understand why Fland would follow Cal.
I thought that was weird too.
To Arkansas when Davis and Wagner's going to start. I don't know what Wagner would have to do to not start. But let's switch to DJ Wagner. 7 points. He was 3 of 7 from the floor. Only took 7 shots in 32 minutes. What do you think about his performance?
It didn't change, and nothing has changed. He still doesn't want to shoot. He can't shoot. He only wants to go to the rim. He loses his handle when he bumps into guys. Like, he can't dribble through contact. I don't know. Not my archetype.
Yeah, he had 3 turnovers and 2 assists. There was one play, and I was texting my brother about it. It wouldn't show up on the stat sheet, but there was a play where I want to say Ivisic set a screen and the defender went under, and Wagner shot the ball and it hit nothing but backboard. But it wasn't an official stat because they called an off moving screen or something like that. But I'm like, was that the real shot?
That's bad because I remember watching on a putback. Maybe it was the same one, but the ball kept going. It was definitely a live ball where they were like, it was a grenade. He catches it. The defender comes over from a really far away. And I don't think it was a great defensive play. I think it was just a slow shot. And same thing, top side of the backboard. Like, he hit the 90.
In the corner?
Yeah.
I saw that. And I was like, did that get blocked? But the one that hit, when I say it hit nothing but backboard from the top of the key, it was bad. And I thought, like, did he throw it up because the ref blew the whistle? But after the ref blew the whistle, he went and got the ball and then shot another 3. Like, if you miss a bad shot, you want to he shot that. So that made me think, like, he really shot a banger from the top of the key. So I'm concerned about the touch, but I'm surprised that he only took 7 shots against Lipscomb.
Yeah, that defense wasn't that great. Like, with all due respect to Lipscomb, I thought they played actually a decent game for.
Yeah, it was close.
For being pretty outmatched talent-wise. He should have been better. But I can't buy into DJ Wagner until I see the shot somehow gets really good. Even if he makes a lot, I just don't see the free throw percentage going up. I just don't trust the jumper. And for me, that's just enough of an out.
Yeah, I don't know what position he plays. All right, let's talk about Ivisic. I'm a big Ivisic guy. I think that there's a chance he could be the best returning big man in college basketball, best returning NBA prospect. That's how high I am on him. He had a good game on paper, 12 points, 3 blocks, 5 of 6 from the floor in 21 minutes. What are your thoughts on Ivisic's performance?
The 3 blocks were cool. My issue with that, I remember on each one of them, he was horribly out of stance. Like, he hunts blocks way too much for my liking. I just don't feel like he has a bunch of defensive technique and defensive just skill right now. Like, he's very raw, right? The way he's always upright, I feel like chasing guys around. He's willing to, like, at least in college, he's okay being out on the perimeter and not going back in the paint, bringing himself in, especially against weaker competition. He should be. That worries me, but I do think the offensive game is pretty nice. Like, I absolutely get that. He's not my top returner, but I do understand where the offensive appeal at his size comes from. And if you can teach him how to play defense, that is a really intriguing play.
Yeah, I'm high on him. I felt like last year when he got minutes, he performed. I want to say like his per 40, and I'm not a per 40 guy. It was like 18, 11, and 4 blocks or something like that. And so he averaged like 1.3 blocks per game last year, playing less than 12 minutes per game. So with bigger minutes, I expect him to have a significant jump as far as statistically. All right, let's talk about Karter Knox. Karter played 11 minutes, was 2 of 4 from the floor, only had 5 points. I thought he was going to be the starter at the 3. I can't imagine they're going with this small lineup all year long.
They're experimenting. They're 100% experimenting.
But who comes out?
One of the guards. Wagner. Like you sub out Wagner and then you just put in Brazil, maybe.
But anyone else, if it's not the Cal Wagner connection, I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Wagner didn't follow him to Arkansas
to become a 6-man.
bench.
Yeah. No, it's fair. Yeah, I don't know what you do with that. It's a weirdly built team because it was built kind of in the last minute.
Yeah. All right, Karter Knox. What were your thoughts on Knox and Billy Richmond?
Yeah, I liked Billy Richmond a little bit more. I like Karter Knox. I've seen him since he was a sophomore in high school, so he's gotten better. I think the work ethic is there. I liked his athleticism popping off a lot of different times on both ends of the floor. He had an insane dunk off the catch towards the end of the game. I really like him. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's got to learn how to play within Arkansas, and it's not just an issue with him. It's just, again, it's pretty new, learning the system and everything and learning how to play with everyone else. And I think that's going to take time, but by the end of the year, we could be looking at somebody who is flirting with one and done. I don't know if he will be. Billy Richmond, though. Billy Richmond was extremely impressive on both ends. Like, I have questions about the jumper. I have had that for a while, but everything else is there for me. Like some of the passes he was making, some of the defensive plays, forcing turnovers, blocking shots. Like I was really impressed.
Yeah, he looks bigger than 6'5". They have him listed as
way
6'5".
bigger.
I thought he was okay. I'm just glad I'm not the only one that noticed that. Maybe it's wrong, but they have him listed at 6'5". I would have guessed he's anywhere between 6'7" and 6'8".
Yeah, I mean, even last year at EYBL, I saw him and I never and then I looked and he was like, I think 6'5" was his listing, and I was like, there's no way this dude is 6'5".
Yeah, maybe it's like the Brandon Ingram thing. Like Brandon Ingram is, you think he's like 6'11". He just seems like he's a lot taller than what he's listed as. Do you think that Richmond could be a surprise one and done?
Yeah, I think Coach Cal does this thing right where he hides guys, and then you have to look at like the per minute, the per possession, all that stuff kind of normalize their numbers and even them out. And then that's where guys like Billy Richmond pops. I think the big concern for him that he has to face is I just don't know if he can shoot very consistently. And that's going to be both off the catch and off the dribble. That's going to be his red flag. Everything else is there for him to be a very good player that could easily go one and done.
Do you think that's going to be the issue for the team as a whole?
You can say that about every single player, huh? I just realized that. I've already said it about like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what I wonder. Like, do they have enough shooting? Yesterday from 3, they were 4 of 19 as a team.
Man,
Boogie was 1 of 8 from 3. If he's not making threes, who's going to make?
I mean, that adds up too, because I remember thinking like I forget. I think it was Billy Richmond only had like 2 assists, and I remember going, but I saw like 5 really good passes from him. So that adds up.
Yeah, they only had 11 assists 10 assists total as a team. Less than Yegor Nimin had.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Podcast. Once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Now check out the Locked On newsletter. Your favorite podcast has a newsletter. So whichever team you support, check it out. It is one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. So sign up for free at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com. And you can start your day with the all new and free Locked On newsletter. Cover your favorite team. Once again, it's Rafael Barlowe with Richard Stayman, and we are out of here.